time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is up, 49ers fans? It's time for another edition of the 49ers Rush Podcast. We're talking NFC West. We're focusing on playoff picture, kind of what the positional standings are at this midway point. We're going to go through the Niners win. We've got lots of good stuff, and as always on Thursday, I got this handsome devil with me. Brian, how are you, my friend?
John, as you know, I look forward to this time. It's always marked in bold in my calendar when I get to come on, talk some Niners, talk some NFC West, hang out with you and hang out with the 49ers faithful. What more could I ask for on a Thursday afternoon?
Oh, I love it. All right, we got to start in 49ers. It's what we do. Tell me what you thought about that 49ers versus the Rams game. Oh, my gosh, it's glorious. I was just thinking about it. I feel wonderful. Walk me through kind of your thoughts on how that whole game planned out and what it means kind of overall for the 49ers.
Sure. So I want to say I think I've called 4 or 5 Niners games correctly in a row. The biggest thing I wanted to see in this game was how Christian McCaffrey fit. I told you on the show, John, I told you when it first happened over text that I thought he was such an amazing fit. To actually see it come to life, and hey, why not throw a pass while you're at it too, you know? I didn't see that coming. Who knew he had that in him? But I just thought there's not that many more absolutely perfect fits for a Shanahan offense than Christian McCaffrey, and it played out exactly as I could have expected it. Rams couldn't stop it. I think a lot of other defenses are going to have trouble stopping it. Even if they start to find to key in on that, you're going to get Kittle open, you're going to get Debo open, and Ayuk. It brings such an added dynamic that the Niners, in my head, as far as the overall picture, jump up a lot of spots. They are, to me, are already now one of the favorites in the NFC.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they have to be. And it's just, man, they keep winning the games that matter the most. Mm-hmm. That's what's so important. They keep winning the ones that matter the most. 3-0 in the division. Now, CMC, as you brought up, kind of changed everything. Man, could you imagine if he landed on the Rams and not the 49ers, what that game would have looked like? I don't know if it's enough to flip the whole game schedule, but, man, he was the NFC Player of the Week. Also, what's crazy, he's never won a Player of the Week honor in his entire career. Christian McCaffrey hasn't.
Wow,
he's been with
really?
the 49ers for 2 weeks. No, he's never won
it. I did not know that. That's absurd. That's a crime that he hasn't won it, because he has certainly had games where he has been just dynamic and unstoppable multiple times over his career with Carolina. But yeah, I mean, you've seen the impact. I thought it would play out that way. I tried to get Christian McCaffrey in a few of my redraft leagues. Didn't work out. I actually have him in our best ball league, so I'm really glad that I drafted him there, John. But yeah, I mean, this isn't a guy who moves the needle a little bit. This is a guy who makes everyone around him better, and most importantly, makes Jimmy Garoppolo better, because he's the type of player that works with Garoppolo's skill set. This isn't a deep threat that Garoppolo still needs to hit 40 yards down the field. This is a guy that's going to make Jimmy G's stats increase.
Right. And I'll say this. I've said this several times on our Patreon channel, but I feel like Christian McCaffrey forced Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo to just take what's given. Mm-hmm. Like, he's literally simplified things to a point where it's just like, all right, who's the defense going to key on? We're going the other way. And when Kittle and CMC run their routes to the same side of the field, it is just, there's just open.
Pick your poison
everywhere. Yeah. You got to pick one. You can't do both. What's up, Mosquito Kelly says, blessed with content from John twice in one day. I was on Wayne Breezy's show this morning. We did our defensive breakdown, started our defensive breakdown on Patreon. We got this show and our Patreon-only bonus live show today at 3 p.m. with 49ers Cutback. So if you want to join that, you got to head over to Patreon. We'll have some more on that later, but that's what we got so far. And we got a question right here from Robert. I like this. This goes to you, Brian, not me. Would you pick a full 49ers?
So I actually saw this in the chat, John. I'm glad that you highlighted it. the one advantage that San Francisco would have in this is that the way to beat Philadelphia, if there is a way, is on the ground. They have probably the best secondary in the NFL right now, especially their cornerbacks with Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It's just across the board. How do you attack them through the air? But the one place they're susceptible, they just lost Jordan Davis. So I don't, that's 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe he's back. So the Eagles fully healthy too. But I do think it's like a strength on strength. That's tough. Fully healthy 49ers, I might go San Francisco. I might give the edge to San Francisco. Fully healthy, meaning their entire defensive line. But is Mosley back? These are the kind of questions.
Yeah.
So it's like fully healthy from before the season started. Man, that's a tough pick. But I'm on the 49ers rush. My instinct was 49ers, so I'll go San Francisco.
I like it. It's interesting. You look at just the Vegas standings and odds on the season. The 49ers are second to win the NFC. It's Eagles, then 49ers. If you look at the Super Bowl, they're fourth. You've got Bills, Eagles, Chiefs, then 49ers. Like, everybody is a believer in this team right now. And it's crazy because you just got demolished 2 weeks ago in your home crowd by Patrick Mahomes. What a difference a week makes. And whenever you can continue to show what you could be, I think that's big. Faithful from Birth, what's up, man? He says, I think all of us are just sitting on the edge of our seats waiting for Debo and CMC to be on the field at the same time for full practice. Wish we had one more week before the bye to help my impatience. Yeah, right? We get this gift that is CMC, but we haven't seen what it could be. We haven't seen Debo. We haven't seen Kittle. We haven't seen CMC all together. After practicing, we got that little glimpse in the Chiefs game that first half. But let me ask you this. Does Debo change anything in your mind with what the 49ers will do on offense whenever you have all three of those guys out there?
I don't know that it would change it. They're all yak monsters. That's what Shanahan wants. That's going to, I mentioned earlier, really emphasize Garoppolo's strengths, because Garoppolo can be a very accurate quarterback when he's playing in rhythm, when he has the play action game going for him. He is not he can hit the deep ball, but it's not something he can hit consistently. Right. So if you've got, like you mentioned earlier, you have to choose between CMC and Kittle if the two of them are running around at the same time. If you have to add Debo to that mix, oh, by the way, Ayuk isn't too bad himself. Like, who do you cover? Who do you focus on stopping? It's one of the reasons why the Chiefs have always been so good, especially when they had Tyreek, because who do you stop? You can't stop Kelsey, because then Hill's going to kill you. Now the 49ers can be in that conversation as an offense that, like, you cannot zero in on anyone. You have to basically try to just play contained and hope that San Francisco makes a mistake. That works in San Francisco's favor. They can play ball control. They can play time of possession. So I don't think they need to alter it. It's just going to be, I think we will see a different guy maybe light up each week. Like, you might see a Debo game one week, you might see a Kittle game the next week. So I don't think there's a consistent, this is the guy every week. I think with the way that they're all kind of built, each week you're going to see a different guy kind of stand up and excel.
Right, and I want to make a clarification. The reason why I didn't use Brandon Ayuk's name and like with those three is because I don't think he's the versatile piece, right? So like Ayuk's just the wide receiver, like he's a wide receiver, but right. Debo's a wide receiver running back. Kittle is a wide receiver, tight end, fullback,
offensive lineman,
right? All those things. So like that's why I was saying those three, not trying to slight Brandon Ayuk. He has had an incredible year so far. So definitely not throwing that out there. Oh, I love this, Big Papa. CMC and Debo will be cool, but getting our defensive players back will be awesome. I was messaging, I want to give credit where credit's due here. I was a 49ers fan who DMs me all the time. I won't put his name out there. We're getting so many players back. I mean, one, Dre Greenlaw, Aziz, Eric Armstead, Jason Verrett, like, you're getting a lot of players back defensively, and I think that's going to be huge. And, I'd like to hope that we get Javon Kinlaw back, but part of me says maybe not, that's going to be a while. So that breaks my heart, but it's just kind of where it is. Now, love all the CCs, love all the hashtag CCs. And, yeah, Clayton, unfortunately, man, he's a working man. He's working today, so he's not with us, but he's part of the team always, and I love that. So here we go. We talked 49ers. We talked Rams. So let's bridge our conversation into this week. 49ers have a bye, obviously. Rams are favored by 3 points Sorry, they're underdogs.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have them as underdogs.
I said it wrong. They're getting 3 points against the Bucs, who have looked bad. Walk us through this game and kind of, man, the Rams are just in a weird spot, but so are the Bucs.
Yeah. This is a battle of two teams that are maybe two of the most disappointing and underachieving teams of the year. They're teams that I think have multiple issues on both sides of the ball. I've got 2.5 as the point spread, but the Rams are underdogs. And it came down when I'm picking this game to I'm not confident in either team by any means, but who am I less confident in? Honestly, that's the Bucs right now. I just think this team is fundamentally broken. They don't have and now assuming he's healthy and plays, and it looks like he will, the Rams still have Kupp. That alone is a reason to put him over, because Kupp is still playing at an all-pro level, even if the rest of that offense is, even if they're not being able to run the ball, even if Stafford is having one of his worst years statistically, Kupp is still able to produce. Who can you say about that on the Bucs? Consistently, they have no run game. Fournette has regressed dramatically. Their offensive line has been much worse. Brady, it's not even just the people are saying, oh, it's a miscommunication. It's not an arm strength issue. I will say this. I watched that Ravens game closely last week on Thursday night. He definitely had some zip on his throws, but there's just something missing that's always been there for Brady. I actually wondered about this in the offseason, John. I said the thing that has always set him apart has been that competitive edge. That's just no one, even in the NFL, as hyper-competitive as it is, has been able to match Tom Brady when he sets his eyes on something. And that seems to be gone. What you can call that the personal issues, you can call that he actually did retire, even if it was only for 44 days. It just ticks down the competitiveness just enough to kind of make him mortal. And a mortal Tom Brady at 45 years old, even if physically he doesn't quite decline yet, makes everything out of sync, which then seems to affect the defense too. These are most of the players they have on defense. Sorry to make this a Bucs episode, guys, but I have opinions. I have opinions about Tampa Bay, and that will reflect the matchup against the Rams. I just think that for whatever reason, it's a morale thing. This entire team, when Mike Evans is dropping wide open touchdown passes, there's just something's out of sync mentally with this team. On top of the fact that they had some losses physically, they were beat up in the secondary. They were missing their top 2 corners and one of their top safeties last week. TBD if they're all back this week, but their offensive line has had losses. They're not running the ball well. And to top that off, Brady and his receivers are repeatedly out of sync. This team is just not working. And they have a different head coach. You can say maybe Todd Bowles, for whatever reason, as a head coach, doesn't work as well as he does as a coordinator. So for those reasons alone, I like McVay and the Rams to bounce back. I think this will be a close game. I don't think any team has enough of an advantage to run away with it. But I am picking the Rams to win this. Certainly picking them to cover. Because I think if the Bucs do pull it off, it might be like they're down by 2, they kick a last-second field goal or something, in which case LA still covers. So I do like the Rams. I am going to pick the Rams to cover this game.
The Bucs have lost 5 out of 6 games.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, that 6th game could have been a loss. You talk about that was the Falcons game where Grady Jarrett had that really insanely questionable roughing the passer where he apparently slung Brady down. That didn't happen. That through the whole game, the Falcons were coming back. If they get the ball back there, that was 3rd down. They get the ball back there. They're only 1 score down. They had scored the 2 previous drives. We might be talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady, losing 6 games in a row.
And, I think another thing that's interesting, you have the Bucs, and they're playing the Rams this week at home. They're playing the Seahawks next week at home. And then they play the 49ers in Santa Clara. So, again, just a little extra, whatever. I love that we get them at home, which the 49ers have played really, really well at home as well. So I think that's huge. And, as we said, the Rams, just yikes. I don't know what else to say about that. Now, I do want to say be real quick because I don't want to move on. You've always got so much stuff, man. I really appreciate that, Brian. Is there anything else about this game that you want to kind of let us know about? Because you're saying the Rams.
I don't feel great about it, but I am saying the Rams. Like I said, this was not a confidence in LA as much as it was a confidence in just how bad Tampa Bay has been. They're dysfunctional. I don't think the Rams are dysfunctional. I think the Rams have lots of holes. I think Tampa Bay is dysfunctional. Another little nugget here, Cam Akers actually participated in their walkthrough today. So he hasn't played over the last 2 weeks. He wanted to get traded. There was word about him possibly wanting to get released, but he actually practiced. It was a walkthrough, but he participated, so that leads me to believe that he will be involved at some point, which means, hey, it's Akers, but it's just one little tiny notch that gives LA a little bit more hope in this matchup against a Bucs defense that all of a sudden over the past few weeks has been one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. It's crazy to say for the Bucs. So you already have Henderson, you get Akers back. It just gives you a little bit more kind of boost in the LA side. So I'm feeling pretty good about picking the Rams here.
All right. I'm not sure I could put money on this one. I just
please don't. I'm picking them because I pick everybody, but it's like I don't feel confident enough that I would put any money on this game.
All right. Now, real quick before we get to our next game, which I'm excited about, shout out to Dale DeMont, made this awesome video. The best way to support the show, it's Patreon. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast. And as soon as you sign up, you get almost everything, depending on the tier you pick. And if you're just interested in 49ers play, guess what? We have every single offensive, defensive, and special teams play from the last 2.5 years. Every single game for the 49ers. Nobody else has this content. Now, not to mention we have extra episodes weekly. We've got scouting report breakdowns. We've got betting. We've got your one-stop shop for 49ers content. And if you want to be heard, guess what? We got Zoom Hangouts twice a month where we listen to you. Patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast, or just Google Patreon and 49ers. We're the first one that shows up. All right. That was fun. I like that. Shout out to Dale. He did some good work there. Now, real quick, sticking with these announcements. Brian's a Dolphins fan, okay? Which that's okay. You are having a great year. You guys are the South Beach 49ers, and I respect that.
Yep.
You're going to be coming out to party with us in Miami, or here in Santa Clara when Miami comes to town.
Not in Miami. Yeah,
we're not
20 minutes from my house. Yes.
So shout out to this. First time we're announcing this. We are partnering with a lot of people. We were going to throw this party in Santa Clara, and I kept reaching out to chapters, different people, and making connections. Listen to this. It's going to be our only one that we do this with. It's going to be a joint party with some Miami fans and some 49ers fans in Santa Clara. It's going to be incredible. John Taylor's coming out. Eric Wright's coming out. We even got some Miami Dolphins legends coming out. Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. So Saturday, December 3rd, we're going to be at the Mission Peak Sports Complex. Now, to get your tickets, 49ersrushroadtrip.com. As always, they are up on the site now. They're $35. Does not include autographs and stuff. If that's something that you want, there's some other packages that are be available. We'll talk about that at a different time. But usually whenever we get players out and we do the autograph session, we usually lose a lot of money. So what we're trying to do is something a little bit different, is throw the party, have the players there. For the few people that want that extra experience, they can be able to pay for that. But to be around and kind of have like still doing trivia, competitions, giveaways, and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be more of kind of a live Q&A format and all those things. So really excited about that. Got the Mexico trip for sure. 49ersrushroadtrip.com. Oh, and Brian's going to be there, which is going to be cool. So you get to meet the legend himself. And then we got our tailgates always day of the game in the blue lot. So those tickets are available if you want to join there.
I want to mention too, guys, you guys have your players that you grew up watching the 49ers that you fell in love with. The Marks brothers, along with Marino, that's who I grew up with. Mark Clayton, Mark Duper. So besides the fact that I get to hang with John and all of you great 49ers faithful, I'm so excited to meet the Marks brothers from the 80s, from my childhood as a Dolphins fan.
Dude, I love it, man. And man, love all the compliments out here. Thank you, Shot Jay, saying he's learned more about football in 2 years than he has in the last decade. Josh talking about how the film's better than the game itself. I love it, man. Appreciate you guys. And, you know, we're approaching 400 people over on Patreon. So I think we're doing a good thing there. Excited about that. And Mosquito Killer, man, John always throwing the best parties at these Rush Road trips. It's all about people and community and building relationships. And I think as long as we focus on that and not making money, eventually I got to make some money. But as long as we focus on that, I think the parties will continue to be a success. Now, speaking of success, one of these NFC West teams have to lose. The Seattle Seahawks at Arizona Cardinals. Man, walk us through this, and I want them both to lose, but at least one team's out.
So I incorrectly picked both of these last week. Arizona was my upset of the week. That was
on Seattle too.
That was more of a reflection of the Vikings don't look like a 6-1 number 4 in our power rankings team. So I thought this might have been a good chance for them to kind of have a letdown. Well, I was wrong there. I might be picking Minnesota to lose again this week. I might just keep getting wrong. But Arizona ended up losing that game. Offense still scored some points, though, so that's noteworthy. On the Seattle side, this was a more reflection of the Giants. I wasn't going to bet against the Giants as well as they were playing. Well, Seattle came out and just kind of whooped them. I know it wasn't a huge game at the end of the day, 27-13, but Seattle was in control of that game throughout, and that just gives me a little bit more faith in the Seahawks. I'm feeling less and less. Oh, and I did make a determination, John. I said last week before this game that it was still between San Francisco and LA. I do not believe that anymore. This division is now, as crazy as it sounds, between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. I still think the 49ers have a better roster. That's unquestionable in my mind. But man, the Seattle team is playing well.
Something about them.
There's something about them, and that you get some of these teams. You think about the 9-7 Giants from 2007, 2008. That team was not great on paper, but they just played so well together. They went on a run. They won the Super Bowl. Teams like this that believe in themselves with no expectations. A guy like Geno Smith, who everyone wrote off, starting 6 or 7 rookies who are all contributing and looking like the best draft class of the year.
Yeah,
there's something to this. And so the fact that Seattle already beat Arizona once. The fact that Seattle is so much more better coached than the Kingsbury Cardinals. I don't think this will be another 12-9 game like the last one. I do think there'll be some points scored. But at the end of the day, I trust Seattle more. I think this defense is now playing exceptional, whereas they were one of the worst defenses of the first few weeks. I think that's for a few reasons, namely those rookies. They're starting a rookie linebacker. They're starting 2 rookie defensive backs. They're finally starting to find their footing and play actually really well. So I believe in Seattle's defense. I believe in Seattle's offense. And I still have my question marks on Arizona. I think this will be a higher scoring game than their last matchup. But I'm still... And Arizona's favored, which I think is strange.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me. I saw it and I was like, well, wait a second. Help me understand. Because nobody believes in Seattle. Nobody does.
Yeah.
And you look at the roster and you're just like, no. Geno Smith, man, he has been so efficient. Like, I don't want to say MVP level, but he's closer to that than he is, just average quarterback play. If you look at
some of these advanced metrics, he's like top 5 to 7 quarterback in the entire league right now.
Yeah.
Do 8 weeks, guys. This isn't like 2-week blip where we got a hot streak. This is now legitimate data. This is nearly the halfway mark of the season. And Geno Smith, he just works in the Shane Waldron offense. He just works in this, chemistry with Pete Carroll. He's always been a good decision maker. He's always been accurate. His problem was he tended to hold the ball too long. He didn't take chances. For whatever reason, he's found his fit. Maybe being a veteran on the bench for it's the better part of 7-8 years made him see the game in a different way. But we can no longer discount Geno Smith. So John, you mentioned that you were surprised when I was looking at this game. I was like, oh, Seattle's favored by 1.5. Do I like that spread? Then I'm like, wait a second, that's a plus. Seattle's actually, Arizona's favored by 1.5. Oh, I'm definitely picking the Seahawks for this one.
Yeah, I'll be doing a teaser with the Seahawks because you give me 2 points plus 6 or 7, depending on the odds. I mean, it's crazy. John says, they're playing with house money. As soon as expectations are put on, that young team will crumble. And I'll say this. Listen now, the 49ers whooped them 27-7. Listen to how they responded. This is how many offensive points per game since the 49ers game. 23 points, 48, 32, 19, 37, 27. And it's not like they're playing bad teams. Like in that same mix, you got the Falcons, you got the Saints, you got the Chargers, you got the Giants. Like, it's not like they're just beating up on bad football teams. It's not that. I don't know, man. Like, I'm not too concerned because, again, I will constantly go back to this. The NFL is a matchup league. They do not match up well against the 49ers.
Right.
And the
Agreed.
fact, like, their offense does not, because their offense is nickel and dime down the field and just sustain, keep moving forward. The 49ers defense is, we get one bad play on you, you're done. Unless you're the Chiefs, but it's worked really well. So it doesn't work well matched up wise. So let's put this in the chat. You guys tell me who's going to win this game, Cardinals or Seahawks. I want to hear what you guys have to say. But I'm leaning Seahawks. I can't bet on the Cardinals.
Yeah,
they're just I just can't
at this point. The getting Hopkins back has been a boon, as we predicted. This offense just functions so much better, and Hopkins is so good. He's one of those players that doesn't matter if you know that Kyler's going to throw him the ball 15 times. They still can't stop him. He's still going to that one-handed. I don't know if you saw the one-handed catch he had in the end zone was just sick. He had one hand pulled behind his back and literally just like snatched the ball out of the air. That's how good DeAndre Hopkins is. Hasn't lost a step. But there's questions with the rest of this team. They still don't have a running game. James Conner might be back, but I don't think he's a big boost. They've had lots of losses across their offensive line, and their defense has been. They played better lately, but they just allowed 34 points to a Vikings offense that hadn't been all that proficient this year. They've won, but they haven't been putting up points like they did in this game. So it's just you mentioned matchups, John. I don't really see a matchup advantage. I don't even put Kyler as a huge advantage matchup over Geno at this point in 2022. So all advantages in my mind goes to the Seahawks. That's why I'm picking them to win and cover.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Would a tie be beneficial? If we look at the standings, okay, Seahawks are in first. They're 5-3, but they're 1-1 in the division. So they're basically one game up on the Niners, but we're 3-0 in the division. A tie would help over a win, obviously, but man, it'd get weird. It would get weird. I don't know, because you look at the Cardinals; they're 3-5, 0-2 in the division. You go 0-3, and again, if they lose, that would make the Seahawks have 6 wins. They would be back 3 games. They're not overcoming that.
No.
Does anybody know if it's a double XP weekend?
That's important information.
Hey, man, my 2 biggest betting axioms, the 2 things that I do more than anything. 1, always bet with Kirk Cousins unless it's a primetime game. And then 2, the XP weekend, which I don't know. I got to look it up. I did download the new Call of Duty playing through campaign mode. It's pretty freaking fun. It's pretty fun. Now, random NFL questions, fantasy questions, Niners questions, whatever you got, throw those in the chat. That's the next section we're going to do. But before we move on, is there anything else about this game that you want to highlight, Brian?
No, pretty straightforward. Like I said, matchups, and I don't see a single matchup that I would favor Arizona here, other than DeAndre Hopkins versus these rookie corners. He's going to put up fantasy points. That's why one of the reasons I don't think this is going to be a low-scoring game. There'll be points scored. I just trust Seattle to make plays on defense when it counts, and I trust Seattle to score more points than Arizona, and I trust Pete Carroll to do a better coaching job than Cliff Kingsbury, and the fact that it's plus 1.5. This is probably going to be one of my more confident picks this week.
All right, I like it. Now, speaking of picks and bets, we do them all the time with MyBookie. You know sports, and you pick winners all the time, so why not get paid for them at MyBookie? MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds, contests, for all your sporting and betting needs anytime, anywhere. You can bet on NFL, NCAA, or, this is pretty fun, I love this, you can bet for the fences, buy on the all-new money bag. So what happens is it's a one-of-a-kind type of opportunity. You just place your bet, spin the wheel, and you get ready to score epic odds on teams, athletes, events, all those things. It just increases those. So it's like a bonus spin to give you even better payouts and better odds, better chances to win. All you got to do is sign up for free today. Use promo code 49ERS or scan the QR code next to me, and you can claim a deposit match of any amount up to $1,000. Again, that's promo code 49ERS to claim your deposit bonus. It's not just a sports book. It's a community. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right, we got a handful of questions, good questions. So again, you want to get those in there, throw those up in the chat. First one comes from DeCal. He says, do the Niners automatically take the division if undefeated in the division? So is there a way the Niners can go 6-0 and not win the division?
Well, yeah, because it's overall record is the first indicator. So if this... You can go undefeated in the division, but the 49ers lose some non-division games. The Seahawks might lose to the Niners twice, but if they win all their other games and they finish with a better record, the team with the better overall record gets the division win regardless. The division record is the second tiebreaker.
I wonder how many times that's happened in NFL history.
Can't imagine many.
Usually, if you dominate your division, you're usually the team that gets in, which I like. So,
but think about like the teams. The Niners lost that game to Chicago, right? They lost to the Broncos. So like these are games that they're not division games in the long. They lost to the Falcons, but they dominated the Seahawks. At the end of the year, if Seattle keeps winning, even if you beat them one more time, Seattle finishes with a better record.
Yep. There we go. Avatar, he says, Jeff Wilson says he asked the 49ers for a trade, was happy to reunite with Mike McDaniel and Raheem Mostert. I'll say this. John Lynch, and he talked about this on the TK show if you have the Athletic subscription, which is a really good listen. It's like 20 minutes. They take care of their people. And whether that's DeForest Buckner, whether that's, right here in Jeff Wilson, like this was a trade that Jeff wanted because he knew he was going to be the number 3 back at best when Elijah Mitchell came back. Why not send him to a place where he's going to be happy? He's happy for this. The Niners take care of their own. It's one of the reasons why they're always such a sought after franchise because it's just first class. It's who we are. It's who the team is.
Thank you, by the way. Happy to get him.
Yeah. Oh, congrats, man.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about that trade with it being a 5th rounder? Because I thought a 6 was overpaying. 5th is incredible to me.
Well, I think it shows, and the fact that they traded their only first that was remaining for Bradley Chubb and then just signed him to a 5-year contract. Like, the Dolphins view themselves as a Super Bowl contender. I don't know if I quite put them there, but I think they're clearly in the mix for the playoffs. I mean, they did beat the Bills. So, I mean, they at least have the capability on any given Sunday to beat the team that I view as the best in the NFL. So I can see why they're making this move. Their offense is very exciting to watch. Their defense has had some issues, which is hopefully Chubb replaces that. So if you view yourself as a contender, you just traded away Chase Edmonds as part of that Bradley Chubb deal. Mostert has come on really well. He has, over the last few weeks, really been the clear RB1 in Miami. But you get a guy like Jeff Wilson, who you can plug in this weekend. He knows this offense because of McDaniel's past, running the same kind of scheme as Shanahan. So you can plug him in instantly. He gives you an extra dynamic. It's a little bit more tougher of a runner than Mostert, who is a little bit more of like the zone read speed guy. So it gives you an extra dynamic, maybe especially around the goal line. And from all intents, Mike McDaniels knows Wilson. Wilson is, from what I've read, is just a guy that teammates really like. Leadership in San Francisco, saying how, I think Shanahan was saying how much Jeff Wilson he does whatever you tell him to. He's just a guy who's there for the team. And the Dolphins just are kind of in F them picks mode like the Rams right now. They think of what they traded for Tyreek Hill, trading away the first for Bradley Chubb, which left them with no first because the other first they got taken away because of the allegations with Ross. So then you think you're in Super Bowl contention. You've got a certain window. Tua is still on a rookie contract. Spend your assets. A 5th round pick on a trade chart probably looks high, but I don't hate them for it.
No. Yeah, there's no loser here. Everybody wins. I think it was the best for everybody. All right, let's go Hockenson value. He got traded within the division, which is insane. Way to bail out a division opponent, Lions. Do you think his fantasy value goes up a lot or stays the same?
I don't know about a lot. It definitely goes up. I don't think that Detroit was using him the way they could have. His best week this year was when Amon-Ra St. Brown was out, DeAndre Swift was out. I think it was week 4 where he had like 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. There should have been more games like that. That's his ceiling. He is incredibly talented. I would put him at least in top 5 as far as talent for tight ends. He's a first-round draft pick. And then you go to a Minnesota team who, Kevin O'Connell, coming from that McVay offense, they have shown the propensity to really involve tight ends in the past. Irv Smith Jr. just got injured, high ankle sprain. He's going to be out, it looks like, maybe 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
You've got Justin Jefferson. Thielen's great, but he's not as dynamic as he used to be. He's great in the red zone. So now you get a guy like Hockenson who can stretch the field, who can work the middle of the field, who can do yards after catch, matchup nightmare. I think they'll utilize him a lot. They're not using the running backs in the pass game the way I thought they would with Dalvin Cook. So, yes, I just like him in this fit for a team that is also contending. They've basically locked up the NFC North already, which is crazy. So, yes, I do think it's especially in a very thin tight end position for fantasy. Yeah, I like Hawkinson's value increasing.
Yeah, and I'll say this just from a football standpoint, he is a true tight end. He doesn't fit the Kelsey or Waller or whatever, like Andrews. He's not those guys. He's a damn good blocker. He's an Iowa guy. Friends with Kittle. They train every offseason. He's a beast. Big Papa, hey, John, how about a list of players you expect back versus players not coming back? Oh, just off the top of my head, I do not see Eric Armstead or Jason Verrett coming back early on. I think Armstead, 1 more week. Aziz, I think he's got a couple more weeks as well. I don't see him coming back. Drake Greenlaw, I do. Verrett, I think, will be active. Debo, I see coming back as well. Colton McKivitz, which is very important to me. I want him getting some reps at right tackle. I really, really do. I doubt they'll do it, but that's what I want to see. So yeah, there we go. Dre Greenlaw back, and I'm trying to think who else I'm missing. Elijah Mitchell, he's going to be back. I think the Jeff Wilson trade definitely alluded to that as well. And Kyle Juszczyk, good Lord, so many players. Juwan Jennings, there's a lot of players, and that's a testament to this team. 4-4 is not sexy, but they won the games they needed to win, the most important ones. So I think that's important. Robert, he says, who's left on our schedule that worries you? That's a good one.
I brought up the schedule because I saw this question in the chat. I'll run it through it quickly. You got the Chargers after the bye at home. Your play the Cardinals. I believe that game's in Mexico City, correct? The game against the Cardinals.
We'll be there.
Yep. That's cool. Got the Saints at home. Dolphins at home. That's probably the one that stands out the most. McDaniels obviously has familiarity with the Shanahan offense. And the biggest trouble this 49ers defense has had all year is against the Chiefs, a team that has lots of weapons. They get in space. They've got a quarterback who gets the ball out quickly, is decisive. That's what Tua does well. Tua's the offensive line for Miami is the big question, so the pass rush could be the difference for San Francisco. But Bucs at home, unless they fix things, that is actually a nicer matchup than it would have looked in the preseason. Seahawks on the road, that probably could end up being the decider for the division. And Commanders at home, Raiders on the road, and then home against the Cardinals to close it out.
I mean, if you're looking at the most important games, it's just divisional games, then conference games. So, like, the Miami game is probably one of the most difficult, but it's an out-of-conference game. Like, it's dead last as far as, like,
importance
needs to be won. It's not
right.
important, but obviously every game matters. You do have that stretch, though, where it's Bucks, Seattle, Commanders. That's 3 straight NFC games. I think that's kind of key. So, yeah, there's not a lot of concern there. I think the Dolphins game is probably going to be the hardest, and the most important is at Seattle, that Thursday game, which will be there for that as well. Another fantasy question from Mark. What's up, Mark? Appreciate seeing you on Patreon. He says, do you see JT bouncing back for the playoffs? The Colts, let's talk about Jonathan, the beast. First-round pick everywhere. He's been terrible.
There's a few reasons. One, he has been beat up. It looks now he's had a regression with his ankle injury. He's actually trending towards not playing this weekend against the Patriots. But here's the reason why I don't see him bouncing back, and it has nothing to do with his talent or his health. The Colts offensive line has been pretty abysmal. Matt Ryan was one of the most sacked in the NFL prior to him getting benched. Now they've got a rookie quarterback, even though he's more mobile. Sam Ehlinger is exciting, sure, but they didn't protect him great last week. They had multiple. Jonathan Taylor fumbled, Ehlinger fumbled. They still had turnover issues. They're not creating a lot of space in the run game. Jonathan Taylor doesn't have many holes to run through. And this team's going to be playing from behind. While we know Jonathan Taylor has some pass-catching abilities, they are best suited. And what they did last year is they gave him the ball 25 to 30 times a game. That's not happening when you're playing from behind. So I think the Colts have a lot of problems in general. Their offensive line is a big issue. We're seeing it play out in LA in the same fashion. So I would not bank on Taylor bouncing back for the fantasy playoffs. You might want to sell him high while he still has some name value in redraft. Hold on to him in Dynasty. In redraft, sell him if you can get maybe 2 starters back.
There we go. Pete says, man, this is not really a question. Both Bateman and Michael Thomas out for the season. Huge losses. Mm-hmm. If you want to take a flyer, Deshaun Jackson's going to be a starter. He's going to be. They
said he's lining up to play this weekend. Djax is back. He's still in the NFL. He's still a thing, and he is looking like he's going to play against who does Baltimore play? The Saints this weekend.
There we go. Mike asked this: Hockenson or Kittle, more points, fantasy points, rest of season?
I'd lean Hockenson because I just think I mentioned earlier it's going to be a week to week who produces. I think Christian McCaffrey you can count on. Just having a healthy floor, but I think you're going to see some Debo weeks. If they start to slow down COC, you're going to see some Kittle weeks. Whereas I think Hockenson and that Vikings and that Kevin O'Connell offense, I could just see them really utilizing him. One thing that Irv Smith Jr. and their second tight end, I think his name is Munt in Minnesota, is they get a lot of red zone targets. So Hawkins is already going to have that touchdown upside. And he's essentially going to be the second most viable receiver behind Justin Jefferson. Jefferson's going to draw a lot of double coverages and stuff that necessarily the Lions receivers weren't drawing, which will open up more things for Hockenson. So I just see a higher ceiling for Hockenson. So that would be my prediction.
Gotcha. And last question right here. Appreciate all your time, Brian. Any indication that Aaron Rodgers will turn things around? Love seeing him suffer, but he's been bad on his fantasy team. What are your thoughts there?
No, because just like the Bucs, they're broken mentally. This team isn't quite playing. Because here's when you start to see the defense play bad. This is another defense that on paper should be top 5. They've got one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL in Jair Alexander. They've got rising pass rushers, Rashawn Gary, DeAndre Campbell before he got injured. Eric Stokes is a fantastic second corner. You've got all of these pieces, and yet they can't stop anybody. To me, that's a morale thing, which starts with 12 on the offensive side of the ball. I love Dobbs as a talent, but they haven't been on the same page. You've had injuries to receivers like Watkins, who hasn't done much anyway. Alan Lazard's been in and out of the lineup. They haven't got a run game going. Their offensive line has been banged up. And Rodgers' reaction to that is just blame everybody else. So I just don't see them really turning things around, especially from production. Now, this week, I do think he's going to light up the Lions secondary. I think the Packers are going to win big, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, the Packers are fixed," and then they'll probably lose most of the rest of their games.
Yeah, they just fired their DB coach. The Lions did.
The Lions did, yeah. Aubrey Pleasant, correct, yeah. Which they probably should get rid of Aaron Glenn too. As much as I liked him from Hard Knocks, that's secondary. Can't stop anybody.
I know everybody buys into the Hard Knocks team every single year.
It's hard
I
not
didn't
to.
feel it at all. I just didn't feel it. I don't know. I get the gritty, we're going to fight and all that stuff, and I totally feel that. But, man, after a while, that stuff just doesn't work if you don't have the talent, and I don't think that they have the talent, not with Jared Goff at quarterback. It just ain't going to work.
Especially on the defensive side of the ball. Honestly, that's been the problem. Goff is going to golf, right? He's going to have games like where he just look bad, but he's also going to have games where he looks like a viable quarterback. They have enough weapons when they're healthy to be a top 5 offense in the NFL, but their defense is awful across the board.
I like it. Brian, thank you so much for your time. I know we went a little long. We do have a live show at 3 o'clock today with 49ers Cutback on Patreon only. We do it every single week. So patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast. You want to join us. And that's one where we let your video, if you want to jump on and ask us a question and have a conversation, it's much more intimate. So you can actually join us. We pull you up into the video. We talk back and forth and all those things. That's at 3 p.m. today. Hopefully you can join us. Brian, any closing remarks before we jump out of here, my friend?
If you guys are itching for even more content, our Thursday live show is at 4 p.m. So you could watch John over on Patreon, hop on over to YouTube for 30 minutes of football. We have an hour. It's just live viewer questions. It's me and the Pro Football Demon. It's probably 98% fantasy, but bring your NFL questions, bring your Niners questions, bring whatever. 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour of us just taking viewer questions. It's always a good time.
Love it, man. Spoiling people. I love it. All right. Till next time. Appreciate you guys. Stay strong, faithful.